You will not believe what I just uncovered. 243.5 million gallons of raw sewage, that's human feces, floating down from the dysfunctional DEI-run water process in Maryland, going right to the Potomac River, creating an E. coli bacteria crisis of unprecedented proportion. You're probably not hearing the story, but you should, because you talk about draining the swamp. Oh my gosh. This is an ecological disaster, the biggest one that's happened in terms of they're estimating 1 billion gallons of raw sewage is going to be going into the Potomac River. It started in January 19th. Most people don't even know about it, but they can't hide it any longer. Like I said, drain the swamp. It's taking a whole new meaning. But I got something for you. Where's my, I've got the, oh, here it is. Will, bring it over here, quick. Will and I are we're alone today in the studio with our little team. Anyway, I got this Growing on Purpose. This is talking about how to become the future you. I just want to take a second to say, every one of you has to live in this era. And you know what? In this era, God has a plan. And God's plan is that you would continue to evolve and grow and mature into the purpose that he has for you. Very few resources that I've seen out in the market talk about the future you. But you can become the person the future requires. We all have to. We got to go up another level. We're all going to be in an interesting period of shaking this year. But if you go to that, call 800-910-6349. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you. You just determine what you want to pay for it. And just get it for free. Just pay postage. LanceWallnau.com/grow. If you're listening on the podcast, just when you get a chance, LanceWallnau.com/grow. I want you to listen to the message that we put together on how to actualize your development in the area of divine purpose. God bless you. Let's watch today's show. Welcome back to the Lance Wallnau Show. You know, Solomon prayed a prayer that's in the Bible that we all ought to think about. He said, you, Lord, have made me king over a people that's vast like the dust of the earth in multitude. This is 2 Chronicles chapter 1, for those of you that want to know where I am. Now give me wisdom and knowledge that I may go out and come in before this people. For who can judge this great people of yours? And God said to Solomon, because this was in your heart, you didn't ask for riches or wealth or honor, or even revenge on your enemies, nor have you even asked for a long life. Notice what most people want. They want to be given honor, have long life, have a lot of wealth, and have their enemies defeated. But Solomon didn't ask for that. He said, oh God, I feel my inadequacy, I feel my youth. I need supernatural wisdom, insight, and knowledge to do my job right. And God was pleased with that. He said, because you've asked for that, for wisdom and knowledge for yourself, that you can judge my people over whom I made you the ruler right now, therefore wisdom and knowledge are granted to you. I'm going to give you, along with that, riches and wealth and honor, such as none of the kings who have ever been before you, nor after you shall have the like. And it's interesting that God has a civic order in the Old Testament. He gives people responsibility, and they have the freedom of choice, what their priorities are. And the priority of this young man was wisdom to do his job right. If you want to know how to pray for the president, don't pray for him to vote this way or vote that way or do what you want. Pray that he'll have the wisdom and the knowledge to navigate in the complexity of decisions, the physical strength and stamina to sustain him so that he can be fully present to the counsel and advice. And then pray for the advisors. Pray that God will uproot the wrong advisors and plant the right advisors. For this is one ruler who we prayed into office. I've written only 2 books in my 40 years, and they have a limited shelf life because they both focus on what God is doing in this decade in the United States through, as I predicted, the emergence of a new populism that would be behind Donald Trump, who would be likened unto a modern-day Cyrus. Now we're at a critical moment in that rising up moment, that movement, because God has given us a leader who has been far friendlier to Christianity than any president ever. We never had a president that said, I'm going to go bomb these Islamic extremists who are killing Christians, our Christians, he calls them, sending a message out to all the nations of the world. And I hope that they are praying, as I'm sure they are, for his health, protection, and wisdom. But we only have him for a little while, and he looks like he's under an avalanche now of the anarchy machine of the left. The darkness seems to be growing in its strength. And I do not see the coordinated pushback yet, because our side is locked into fragmented debates. And I would say, rather than praying for the wisdom of the president, they're hurling their critiques at him. So I just cover him in the name of Jesus right now on a Sunday morning when the show's playing, I guess, for Real America's Voice, and for whatever other day of the week you're watching this program. I cover the president today. In the name of Jesus, we pray for his wisdom, that he will be protected from every mischievous, malicious attack from the enemy. You'll give him a strength and a longer life, and that you'll give him wise counsel, and he'll have knowledge to make the right decisions. In Jesus' name. Now, I'm starting off this half of the show that way because if I don't get prayer in, sometimes I feel like I'll lose my flipping mind, because I cover what's going on out there. I cover the sewage. You talk about draining the swamp, get a hold of this one. There's a sewage crisis of historic proportions, as diversity, equity, and inclusion leadership has hired incompetent people to run the water treatment process in D.C.'s waters supply that has resulted in, get this, 243.5 million gallons of human floating feces spilling out of the sewage system and mingling with the Potomac River. That's 243 million gallons of pure crap flowing down and into the river. What we're looking at now is authorities issuing alerts to residents in the nation's capital, in Maryland and Virginia. Avoid contact with the river. It's like the plagues of Egypt that came upon the Nile, because E. coli bacteria is hit skyrocketing levels. And it's because of the breakdown of a thing called the Potomac Interceptor sewer line. Well, the reason why it's falling apart is because the management that took it over under Biden is dedicated to firing all the white leadership and getting a diversity representation of women and men of different color that they insist reflects more the community that they represent. So when you put the priority not on engineering and on water management, but on Marxist diversity quotas, you end up with incompetent people that flood you with E. coli disaster. So the leaders said, but we wanted to hire people that look more like the people that live in the neighborhood. So we have the spill. And hundreds of millions, and they estimate 1 billion gallons of raw poop and sewage is going to basically flood its way into the waters. What will that do with the fish? What will that do with the floral life and et cetera? I don't know, but it's because of mismanagement. And I think that. Show the picture, Will. You got a picture? I want to see the trail of poop as it's going. Washington, D.C. waterway spill, January to February. There you see, those of you that are in the podcast world and not able to look at this, we're watching the line of the sewage as it goes through Washington, D.C., the National Mall, the airport, Arlington National Cemetery, all of the prestigious. I wonder what it's going to smell like. I wonder if they're going to have a fragrance for the cherry blossom ceremony. I shouldn't be laughing. The Environmental Protection Agency, led by Lee Zeldin, said the D.C. water, yet at this point, they're still not reaching out for any federal help. They don't want help because they only want to work with diversity quotas. So there's extensive environmental damage. This mess must be completely addressed as fast as humanly possible. And the Trump Environmental Protection Agency stands ready where we can assist. But we got to end this disaster. But typical Marxists, progressives, they don't want to reach out for help. And I think the governor of Maryland is involved with this disaster because he wasn't invited to Trump's governor's lunch. And I think he's holding out and saying, I think you ought to give us some money first. Give us more money. Isn't that a negotiating tactic? We'll hold you hostage with the sewage till you give us some more money for what we got to do to fix it. So, but the good news is the D.C. water, environmental, social, governance priorities were committed to climate change. Well, guess what? They've accomplished climate change, only I don't think in the way they thought they would. But I'm just telling you, it'll happen. If the left gets back in power, if we give them back, and they want it desperately. They have a worldview, folks. The Bible talks about principalities and powers and world rulers. There's a world ruler spirit, meaning it spans not just the United States. It actually has gone into Europe, and it's created a kind of a paralysis of decision-making and pragmatism as Islam is taking over, and with 50 million Muslims exerting more and more political power and influence and growing in England and Germany and France, you see a problem because the formerly Christian Western civilization strongholds of Europe has collapsed, and the church no longer has a vibrant Christian voice. So what's taken its place is this elite, globalist, Davos, secularist, I guess consensus. And that consensus is basically making environmentalism, transgender ideology, LGBTQ issues, and socialism their main concern. And I fear that they'll collapse in the face of a strong Islam because they're so weak as leaders. They will cave into anything. So with that thought in mind, European Parliament votes to detonate a political war over transgender, while in the United States, we're finding the transgender community is suffering. Why? Because in our litigious society, the young people that had their breasts cut off or their genitals mutilated or were advised by counselors and physicians to green light, people who were afraid to resist them for fear that they would lose their licenses. So you want it, you can have it. If you can pay for it, you can get it. If the government will help, we'll get some money. If there's money in this thing, we'll abort babies, we'll cut off your genitals. And so that's unfortunately the ethics of a lot of the medical community. If we get paid for it, we'll do it. So, but you see, they're getting sued in the United States. And because they're getting sued, we're seeing a number of the trans surgeries are falling off. Although there's still a problem with state-funded surgery for inmates. I mean, the closer you get to the federal government, the closer you get to, apart from Trump and our momentary conservative presence, you get a kind of a stupidity that says, if a guy wants to go to the female prison, all he has to do is start advocating for the fact that I'm not a guy, I'm a girl. And you should be paying for me. So expensive surgeries are being done at taxpayer money for trans surgeries in prison. You get that? And so one guy performed over 1,000 vaginoplasties, averaging 5 procedures a week. And that's a horrifying thing where they remove the male genitalia and they use colon tissue to construct a fake vagina that you spend your whole life trying to keep open because your body will keep trying to heal it. And so you have to keep dilating it so that it doesn't close. It's this ghastly, Frankensteinian type stuff, Dr. Mengele type stuff. But in some states, taxpayer dollars are going for gender-affirming surgery to help the guys get in the girls' prisons. It's, wow. Is that crazy? We'll be right back.
It's finally here, our second annual mega sale. This sale only comes around once a year, so take advantage of the best offers ever while you can. For example, save 50% on our Giza Dream bed sheets, as low as $29.98. And for the first time ever on TV, MyPillow mattresses and MyPillow mattress toppers as low as $99.98. And you save 50% on our Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets. Regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And our best-selling standard MyPillows, regular $49.98, on sale for $17.98. Wait on it, mega sale, only $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But wait, there's more. To make the mega sale even more special, when you order right now, your order's going to ship absolutely free.
All right, so back to the Parliament issue. I was talking about the vote to detonate a political... Now, here's what's going on in Europe. In a landmark decision, the European Parliament adopted a sweeping resolution calling for the full recognition of trans women as women. If a man says he's a woman, he's a woman. Unlike Donald Trump, who says a man is a man, a woman is a woman. In Europe, they say, nah, a man is a woman and a woman is a man. So they're creating a non-binding resolution that was passed by those weak-minded wussies over there, 340 to 141 votes. So that's a significant shift that shows where your Euro dollars and your rich people and your enlightened progressives will take the non-Islam community over the cliff, which is why I think Islam is going to continue to rise until the Christians, a populist movement, merge together and create a firewall of common sense. Anyway, what this means is that that when the statement came up, can only biological women become pregnant? They said, oh, you can't make that a test. That's not, we have to defeat that. And with 233 members of Parliament voting against the biological distinction that only women can be pregnant, they shot that distinction down and opened up Pandora's box. Why? Well, because if the 27 member states are going to insist on that DEI equality framework that men can be women and women can be men, if they say they are, they can be. What does that do for statistical? Well, forget about 100 other applications, but just one for instance. What happens when you start trying to track the instances of female cancers, specific cancers such as ovarian or cervical cancer? You see, if a man is a woman and a woman is a man, then all those terms get lost and you no longer have data to track anything regarding the ovarian or cervical cancer, because biological men suddenly get mixed up in the administrative calculus of what's happening with women. You understand how crazy that is? I understand how crazy that is. So now all your data is, in terms of medical tracking, is convoluted because evidently, let's say, as you can see here, genital tracking of data is no longer possible. Existing laws designed to protect women require 30% female representation on corporate boards. Now, here's an interesting thing. The socialists over there said, we want to have at least 30% female representation on all corporate boards. Well, you've really screwed that up now, because now when you got men that say they're women, you've got men on the corporate board bumping off the women because you got to get the trans people in there. And so now you're no longer going to have a 30% women. You're going to have a certain percentage of men saying they're women. You understand how this gets complicated when you get stupid? The initiative was driven by a report from socialist MEP Lena Galvez, which argued that the EU should prioritize the international promotion of self-perceived gender identity. That, if that's what you say you are, then that's what you are. Well, by refusing to affirm a basic biological distinction, the Parliament has signaled a structural move that is going to create chaos. Once the legal architecture beneath sex-based rights is altered, every policy built upon it, from sports eligibility to prison safety, has to adjust to accommodate the self-definition of people. This reminds me in the Bible when it says that because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. Why? Because when you see illogic and moral insanity, that's being legalized and forcing you to pay for it and submit to it, then it creates, ironically, lawlessness. Because if you don't have moral laws that are intelligent, then there is no law, and then the law collapses because thinking people realize that there is no moral structure behind the laws that exist. So it's kind of like the sewage crisis in D.C. It's creating a social sewage crisis over there. By the way, speaking of real quick, I'm running out of time here. Mamdani's painful tax hike. You guys understand what's going on there. That the new color revolution is Islam and Marxism going to bed and having a baby. And if you add to that the elites of Europe and the wealthy class that are doing what they're doing with Europe, you have a globalist, Marxist, Islamic convergence that has just one goal: the eradication of Christian Judeo history, structure, and institutions, and the taking over of them by this new polity, this new unity. The problem is the New York mayor has to actually prove that Marxism works. And so he's got a budget crisis. He's got to pay for that budget. You realize that the budget of New York is larger than the budget of Florida? New York City has a budget that's larger. So he's looking for $127 billion. And rather than cutting back, which is what you normally do when you don't have money, he is actually saying, no, we're not going to cut back. We're going to, and frankly, the budget of New York City is bigger than 47 states. He says, actually, our 23 million people are going to have to we're going to have some accommodations made. And that the accommodations, he said to the governor there, because he's got to go to the governor to get her to help him out, of New York, is that, we want free stuff. Someone's got to pay for it. So I want to be able to raise taxes on the ultra wealthy and the corporations. And so I'm going to start taxing more. And of course, what happens then is you drive wealth and corporations out of New York City and into Florida. So Mamdani is calling for Governor Kathy Hochul and the state legislators to raise income taxes. And how is she going to get elected as governor if she's raising everyone's taxes? Democrats know they can't say that. So she says no. So he's going to have to just do what he has the jurisdiction to do, which is a 9.5% or 10% tithe. You're going to pay your tithe one way or the other in New York. And it's a property tax increase. And it's going to affect 3 million homes and working class, middle class New Yorkers, as well as businesses. So Mamdani claims his administration's found $1.7 billion to cut, but that's really a laughable number. The reality is Mamdani is trying to expand city government. The city should provide basic services like law and order, but instead it's pouring billions into social spending, like housing and health care. And of course, we know there has to be millions for racial equity offices and diversity officials. But notice this, there is a cut that he's really going to make. Mamdani suggested he should just cut back on the police department. And so he's proposing a $22 million budget cut. And he says, we're just going to, if we have rising crime, we'll just have to figure out another way to solve it, because we're not going to get 5,000 new officers. I'm going to cut them off. So cut the police off, raise the taxes, go after the middle class there with what they got, and shake them down so that you can continue to give free stuff to people who probably aren't contributing the same. Wow. We're going to, I think the gift of Mamdani is, you need to have people like that that are doing on the big stage their experiment, so that the rest of the country can observe. And like Rush Limbaugh said regarding Obama's presidency, I hope he fails. Well, what that means is I really hope that he proves to everyone's satisfaction that socialism actually doesn't work and that it has a detrimental effect on people. Now, I only got 3 minutes left, and I'm sorry that I only have 3 minutes left, because I really want to talk about Christian nationalism. It seems to be in the news right now. Hey, play Charlie Kirk right there. Video cut 4. My dear brother Charlie, before he passed, said a spiritual battle's coming to the West, and I think that's what I'm talking about.
Spiritual battle is coming to the West, and the enemies are wokeism or Marxism combining with Islamism to go after what we call the American way of life. And the American way of life is very simple. I want to be able to get married, buy a home, have kids, allow them to ride their bike till the sun goes down, send them to a good school, have a low-crime neighborhood, not to have my kid be taught the lesbian, gay, transgender garbage in their school, while also not having them have to hear the Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day. That's important. We want the American way of life, which is, by the way, Christendom. Christians, our sacrifice, our toil, our vision, the outgrowth of the scriptures gave us Western civilization. And this is where I think is a great rallying cry. Doesn't matter if you're Hispanic, doesn't matter if you're Asian, doesn't matter if you're black or white. Everybody, if you are Christian and Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, these two threats are combining forces to come after us. And it's time that the church stands and rises up against it.
Well, man, do we need to have that voice? May God raise up some voices like that. I don't know where they are. I think we got a couple of there. They seem to like the punch. That's why the devil had to take him out. But we need more. I interviewed him, and Charlie said to me, I want to raise 1,000, Dietrich Bonhoeffers. I said, Dietrich Bonhoeffers? He said, yeah, man, you're going to die for something. You're going to die at some time. I'd rather die for a righteous cause. Well, he fulfilled that prophecy. But we need to have the other 999 Dietrich Bonhoeffers. Where are you? I'm almost turning 70. My cognitive capacities aren't as sharp as they were when I was young. I'm aware of that deterioration. However, God will use the old as well as the young. Will he not? Well, let's play what Michael Knowles is saying. Young people want the truth, and they're looking around for a society that works better. What does Knowles say? Let's hear him.
Because young people are starved for truth. Unlike prior generations, the millennials and Gen Z grew up in a world in which we all have to pretend that we don't know what a woman is or what the difference between a man and a woman is. Some people sincerely don't know, like a Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Jackson. That is a world that wants something not just to make you feel good, not just something that sounds kind of nice. That's a world that wants the truth. And, these eternal questions have been around forever. And as St. Augustine says, a man's heart is never at peace until it finds its rest in God. So the new atheists tried to take everybody away from religion for about 20 years, but ultimately they've failed. Their answers were found lacking, and young people want the truth. And not only that, but they're looking around and they're realizing that society sure seemed to work a lot better when everybody believed in God.
With 30 seconds left, how do we keep this momentum and make sure that this is not just a moment in time?
Well, you have to actually do it. You have to do the religion. Religion is a habit of virtue that inclines the person to give to God what he deserves. So it's not just to know that God exists or that religion's true. You actually have to go out, serve your communities, pray, go to church, avail yourself of the sacraments. This is something we do with our whole body. Our friend Charlie Kirk, when he died, one felt a real religious revival in this country. One could feel the spirit moving over the country. And so I think that we have that desire, we have that inclination. Now we have to follow our heart's desire to the only place it can rest, which is in God.
Well, and the revival or the awakening that Charlie Kirk was spearheading was, I would say, really disrupted, because once we had the memorial service, we went back to normal, and then normal for us was, without him as a coalition force, my God, how many of the conservatives started fighting with each other, bickering over Israel, Epstein, stupid stuff. And Charlie had the ability behind the scenes through texting and through coercion to create the cadence. He'd be all maniacal about midterms right now and about the threats that are in the United States to the Christian morality that can save the nation from impending chaotic destruction. You can see from what took place with the riots when ICE showed up to deport criminals, and how the left was able to mobilize literally rent-a-mobs that could get the sympathetic support of media. Remember this. The reason why I do Seven Mountains, I got because that blueprint is such a simplifying, clarifying matrix. When Michael Knowles says, "What do you do?" and he says, "Well, sacraments and do your religious duty," I say, Christians and those that understand real conservative worldview, you better aim to counter the media narrative that's out there. That's why programs like this exist. That's why I do what I do. My own little humble way, I'm pushing back on the media mountain, and I find my way to a couple 100,000 people's minds, and they influence other people. But we have to fight the media narrative. We have to undo the educational dominance of the left. I am looking, if someone can send me something, help me. I'm looking for someone who has a plan to require the colleges that are getting government funding from their states and from the federal government to at least have a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy for conservative worldview on the faculty. Because 90% of the faculty votes Democrat. That tells you their worldview is progressive. You're sending your youngest, most impressionable minds that will be leaders in the elite class of business and entertainment and government and law and finance. They're all coming under the conformity influence and the pressure machine of the progressive worldview and paying out the wazoo hundreds of thousands of dollars to become little acolytes of the next social movement that the left cooks up. If we don't recover the education mountain, then we're fighting against the factory, and the factory is producing the thinking for the future. And right now, 60% of your graduates from college actually are more socialist-oriented and Marxist-oriented than free enterprise-oriented. So they can just watch your economy in the future collapse, like New York. Like the misrun California. If it wasn't for Silicon Valley out there, just standing on its own, California is the worst run economic mess in the United States. As California goes, so goes the nation, we're told. So Newsom will be glad to run and take over the whole country and sink it. So, but I'm trying to be positive here, and here's my positive thought. Education is a mountain. Where are you? How do you influence it? Target the forehead of the giant in your neighborhood. School boards, get involved. The curriculum, the teachers, find out what they're doing. And then the media, become a citizen army. And look at that one kid there with an iPhone, brought down the whole corrupt infrastructure of the Somalian daycare community. A kid with an iPhone. You got 1,800 journalists on the payroll of all these legacy news outlets. Nobody covered the story. This kid did. Citizen journalism, go for the media mountain. Education, make it a subject of intense investigation, and help me find out how we can get into the academic realm outside of high school into the college area. I got some programs I'm looking at for schools. There's some things advancing, but not at the college level. Take a look at certainly at government. With the midterms coming up, 36% of Christians will not vote. What a disgusting statistic. 36, you almost deserve persecution when God says you can choose righteousness or lawlessness, and you opt to not make any choice. That means the people that choose lawlessness just chose for you what your future is. 36% of Christians will not vote in midterms. And then they're going to complain and do their chat threads and critique Trump and the country and run their mouths, but they didn't even do their citizen responsibility. They sinned by taking the sin of omission, not doing what you should have done to restrain evil. But government is a mountain, media is a mountain, academia is a mountain, business is a mountain. I say we need a whole vigorous new entrepreneur. The Powell memo, go look up the Powell memo. Those of you that are intelligent, look up the Powell memo, the environmentalist, Green Day, whatever, Greenpeace movement, not Green Day, Greenpeace movement was upset with it because before he went on to the Supreme Court, he wrote a memo, an answer to a question, which is how do we stop Marxism and socialism in the United States? He said you're going to have front runners. You have to have an A-list bureau of speakers. You're going to have white papers and articles. You're going to have entertainment talking about extolling and talking about the contrast between communism, Marxism, and free enterprise, the difference between what countries look like that operate under different systems. You're going to need to have them showing up on campus, get the government to make sure that the debate is vigorous and at the campus level. Give it media coverage. have some writing, do some books. Basically, he was saying create cultural content that is an advocacy for free enterprise and bop that Marxist, that virus on the nose. We don't have that today. The Powell memo explained everything that needed to be done in order to push back on it. And there was some elements of it that happened, and that's what gave way to the Reagan Revolution. But my gosh, we need it now. And we need that media mountain and arts and entertainment. I mean, I think Steve Bannon understands that. Dinesh D'Souza understands. We got to have more well-done documentaries, or like Matt Walsh did, mockumentaries. What is a woman? We need to have a pipeline of that. Islam is funding 5,000 documentary-making students right now. That's their data. 5,000 lawyers, 5,000 journalists, 5,000 documentary filmmakers, and 5,000 students studying history so that they can get college status as an assistant professor and future professors. They're feeding the funnel of the seven mountains. We're not. But business, arts and entertainment, media, separate from arts, media, government, education, and then family, fighting the trans, fighting the LGBTQ weirdness, fighting this, somehow we just kind of ho-hummed and allowed same-sex couples to adopt. I'd like to do some studies on that to see how healthy those families are if the couples are staying together, what the effect is on the children long-term. You understand what I'm saying? And then finally, the mountain of religion, the mountain of church, the one that we have the hardest time getting our hands on. I have a challenge trying to find... I got vigilante revivalists all over the place to go preach like a house on fire. But to get them to work together, to get them to form a coalition, to get them to speak with one voice. I was going to get into Christian nationalism. It's going to be a whole half-hour subject. I want to make the defense of Christian nationalism, why Christians must engage in the public sector, and what it looks like, and the argument for why that has to happen, and what a Christian nationalist worldview really is. Basically, it's the moral order of a Christian worldview we used to have 100 years ago. So that we have at least moral consensus as to what is right and what is wrong. And we may not win every battle because the culture is going towards depravity, but we can draw a line, and like Michael Knowles said, there are so many young people that want the truth, and that we can win that Gen Z. We can win them if we have a strong, virtuous, courageous, sacrificial, responsible Christ rising up. Jesus will always draw. He said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. We got to get Jesus properly presented and followers that are actually properly following that Jesus. But we'll talk about that in the future. Right now, I'm just going to say I'm so glad to be able to talk to you and to be with you. And here, I'm going to give you this. I have one. Again, for one more week, I've got Growing on Purpose for your gift of any amount. I'm basically publishing this and putting this out there and saying, hey, if all you can afford is the shipping, then just get yourself this thing. I'm giving it to you as a gift. But call 800-910-6349. It's talking about becoming the person the future requires. Growing up on purpose. When God has a purpose for you, you'll find that when you discover that purpose, you live that purpose, you'll have the most exciting life possible, because you're sucked up into the vortex of a God-inspired call in your life instead of a mundane survival existence. The future you is already on the inside of you. I want to teach you how to unlock it. And that'll be lancewallnau.com/grow. For those of you with the podcast, hey, your gift of any amount means just get it. Get it cheap or help me out. Either way, my gift to you. And I'll see you again tomorrow.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better